How does this approach sit with objectives of Agile?
The picture sometimes is a little tough to decode.
Those things are not part of this measurement. So in a way, it's like we are stuck in the process.
And have a look into this very long train. That's the inspiration on drawing this picture.
Two teams are not talking to each other for whatever reasons.
And I would recommend people who are embracing it for the first time is do not forget your engineering practices.
Hey guys, welcome to Better Engineering and Management podcast. Today we have Pavithra Ravishankar joining us to share how release trains work, the challenges involved, and how we can solve them. Pavithra is a release train engineer, safe practice consultant, and a storyteller. Pavithra, please welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Pradeep. Nice to be here.
So Pavithra, please explain to our viewers how exactly do release trains work? Can you please shed some light on this concept?
Yeah, sure. I think if we have a look into overall the Scaled Agile Framework, the picture sometimes is a little tough to decode and to understand what goes in. So I've just made a very, very simple hand sketch which could probably help in understanding how a release train looks like. So let me just share my screen.
Oh, yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so if you just stand on a platform or a station and have a look into this very long train, that's the inspiration on drawing this picture. So basically a release train is very similar to the usual trains what we travel, where it has multiple compartments or bogies, right? And all these compartments and bogies are nothing but the different team members, irrespective of their roles, who are all involved in building a platform or a product.
Okay.
And this rail, what you see, the two rails, those are the very key ones, which are the product vision and architecture, which is going to help the train to go to one destination. And probably the ones who are sitting in the engine are the key roles, what we call as amigos, the product management business owners, and RT is something like the engine pilot who help in ensuring that the bogies are aligned, people are onboarding and offboarding at the right time, and we are in fact going towards the same destination. And like for a train, we also have regular stations, and we call it as the PI planning event, where the entire train stops, plans for the next, let's say, couple of months, looks back on what went wrong, and then continue with the journey.
Interesting. Okay.
So for a real life example, like I had formed a train for one of the e-commerce platform.
Okay.
So when we talk of e-commerce, you'll have all kind of teams, right? You'll have an engineering team, you'll have a security team, the business team, the marketing team, then the SAP who are the hardcore partners on the payment. All of them together are in a virtual organization, that's a release train. And we are all headed towards creating a better e-commerce platform for whatever purpose it is. So that's how we envision the release train.
Very interesting. So basically what you're saying is all the developers are essentially your passengers who are all going to the same destination, and release train engineer is the driver who is kind of taking all of them in the same direction so that we all reach at the destination at the same time. And that's very, very, very interesting visualization. So tell me, Pavithra, considering the fact that release trains often needs contributions from multiple teams, right? How does this approach sit with objectives of Agile?
Right. So fundamentally, what we need to understand about Agile Release Train is it looks very complex, and of course, it is built for a large scaled purpose.
Right.
However, the bogies or the fundamental teams are nothing but either your Scrum team or a Kanban team.
Okay.
So when we talk about a team level, there'll be maximum like 10 to 12 people across cross-collaborated different skill sets who are present and who will be working on the objectives. Of course, what adds the complexity is the number of collaborations, the number of layers what we have added for alignment to bring the business objective and Agile closer. So even though it seems a little complex, it still goes by the Agile value. Like what is Agile? Agile is to have a fast delivery close to customer. So we have brought the customer closer because in the train you have business owners, you have product managers, marketing, sales who are going to keep you close to the customer. And of course, the delivery is the key focus. So that also is an aspect of engineering which is taken care of. And all obviously individuals over interactions, all the Agile principles are kept as a base. We have only amplified Agile to fit into a complex environment.
Okay, that's very interesting. So what you're saying is that agile principles are not getting contradicted here because of the use of release trains, because all the agile principles are intact here, whether it's individuals over interactions and all those concepts are not getting kind of derailed here. We are simply kind of amplifying them so that their value kind of becomes more and more. Okay, that's very interesting. So
And just to add on, like people will be very familiar with the Scrum where you
right.
plan for one iteration, which is 10 or 15 days. In a scaled concept, we just plan once in a 8 to 12 weeks where it is a big day event called as PI planning. So
Right.
all of these events, ceremonies, the roles, the fundamentals are all kept the same with scaling and amplification. That's it.
And when you say scaling here, right, can you shed some more light? When you say scale, is it in terms of number of features that we're talking about, or is it in terms of number of people that that we can deal with by using release trains? Because generally agile teams are smaller, right? One agile team will be let's say around 10 people, right? Where developers, QA, and designers and all will be working together. So when you say right, you are scaling it. Are you saying that you are building this capacity to include teams with larger sizes who can kind of deliver a larger number of features? Is that what the idea is?
No, scaling first comes from the business.
Okay, okay,
So we will only go for this train if you really need a train.
okay.
To continue with the same example, when you have to, like, say, build a big e-commerce platform like Amazon, because we are using it every day, I'm taking that example.
Right.
One Scrum team cannot fulfill all of it. So if I have to take this e-commerce, you need, of course, the front-end engineers who are building your app. Then the large part of it is the SAP, the payment. They are completely a different organization. They work by totally different culture and engineering principles. Then for e-commerce, you need a UX design team. You need, let us say, business people, marketing, sales.
Right.
Then you have like a team of onboarding the sellers and buyers into the platform. Then somebody takes care of the inventory. So there are all of these different aspects involved, which are coming from the different threads of the organization. So a one Scrum team cannot fulfill the purpose of this business.
Right.
That is where the need of the scaling rises. So thereby we give birth to an agile train, which kind of brings together all these people in a virtual organization and then march towards the purpose. So scaling first comes from business. If you don't have a business need, if you don't have such a large scale complex platform or product to build, there's no need to go for a release train. That's the first principle.
Okay.
And thereby, when the business scales, obviously the number of developers scale, the people who are contributing to it scale. And it's like when you talk about a backlog or a vision, if it is for 10-member one Scrum team, I can give the backlog just like say 1 week before. So if you are driving such a big train, like a literal train, if you have to take a turn towards the customer, the backlog should be given very well in advance. So that is also a scaling. So your vision, your backlog, your team member, your business, everything amplifies, which is giving need to a long-term strategic planning. That's what it is. Yeah.
And you also mentioned something about PI or something, right? These common meetings places. So my question is like, what are the points of intersection for these various teams where they come together either to discuss or plan or to release? So do you have names for these particular events?
Yeah, right. So the biggest one, or let's say the most fundamental one, it's okay not to have the others, is the PI planning. PI planning is nothing but planning intervals, no fancy terms. So since you have all these different stakeholders, and let us say a simple example, we have a customer milestone coming. We have to make a delivery to one of the customers. So what this team does is, a PI planning is a 8 to 12 week interval. And why the 8 to 12 week interval? Because, like I said, so many people are involved. We cannot keep meeting every 1 week like a Scrum team. So the team comes together on the PI planning event and decides what do we do for the next 8 to 12 weeks. That's it. So the customer box will decide, okay, I have to target these customers. So let's say I have to go into the mid market, thereby the backlog should be this. Then the product managers divide the backlogs, they write it, and then the product owners take it to the team. And the team understands, okay, this is what is my focus area and what I need to build for the 8 to 12 weeks. So this is one heartbeat or one cadence that for sure all of them should be present together. No matter how much or what value you bring to the train, if you're part of this platform, everybody comes together and they talk on what do we do for the next 8-12 weeks? Very simple. We make a plan.
Okay.
And then they see, I have dependency on you, you have dependency on me. These are the risks. So we make like a full-blown plan for 8 to 12 weeks,
Okay.
which is further divided into smaller sprints. So this is one cadence. And at the end of the PI planning, we again have an important cadence called Inspect Adapt, where we just look back and reflect whether we are going in the right direction. So you wanted to go to the mid-market. Did it really work?
Okay.
Did the backlog really help you? Are the customers happy? And from engineering side, are you really doing the engineering practices well? Were you able to achieve your deliveries?
Okay.
That is again a key, like say the start and the end point of the train. This is very important. Of course, internally, just like any other Scrum team, because it's again divided into iterations, like the teams can have their own events like iteration start, iteration end. And then important one is a system demo, which happens at the end of every iteration, where again the entire train comes, they show their work to the stakeholders, and they kind of get a verification, okay, this is what the customers are looking for. You kind of get a go ahead tweaking, and then you again start. And of course, in between this, we also have some things like Art Sync, where the key stakeholders or the system levers of the train, the Scrum Masters, POs, RTs, Product Manager, they meet like weekly once to say, okay, are things going fine? Do you need any support? Are there any risks?
Okay.
So such kind of things also happen. So
Sure.
just to summarize, you have a planning where we huddle up and decide what to do. In the intervals, you show the demo on whether your plan is being rightly received. And at the end of it, you reflect and then move on to plan for the next PI.
Very interesting. Okay, I think so. That brings me to my next question. Agile has been in the system for a pretty long time, and so what you're saying is we're not kind of disturbing any principles of Agile. We're just scaling it enough. But tell me one thing. So the planning has happened, the inspect and adapt cycles have happened, the demos have happened. Now comes the release, right? I wanted to specifically understand, like, how does the release work when there are multiple, let's say stakeholders involved, multiple teams involved? Do we say that we have to do one book mega release, or all of them can release individually as per their convenience, which is in fashion these days, right? With Kubernetes and CI/CD platforms, generally people kind of test it and deploy a very small microservice, right? So with release trains, does this change at all, or they can still continue to kind of keep releasing very small microservices, and the whole picture is the whole focus can remain on the planning with release train engineering? I hope my question is clear.
Concept of release, yeah, it's clear. I hope, just let me know if this is what you're looking for and it helps our viewers. So when we talk about release, like any other project or any other framework, the concept of release should come from customer.
Okay.
We always release to production because somebody there is waiting to get it used. So the first tick mark is release on demand, where we see there is a need to release, somebody is waiting to use it, thereby it gets started.
Right.
Now, when we talk about milestones, right, the releases can be planned by the team in any way. The release train is not going to disrupt or make an interruption there. So, for example, if for a team, entire, let's say for milestone 1, all the art together should make a release, which means the microservices, the front end, the CI/CD DevOps, obviously being an integral part of it. And like say a customer layer also has to come and get onboarded, and then you want to make a release, that is also possible.
Okay.
Or let us say we have a small patch update where quickly only the API signature or something has changed. Such kind of delta releases also can be facilitated. So, however, we have been doing an engineering release, like we have a full-fledged production release, we have a delta release, a defect fix, all of them remains the same. We follow the process, we keep up the engineering release. Only thing is, we facilitate, let's say, inside the planning that, okay, end of sprint 2, I have released 1. End of sprint 3, I have released 3. So that is also articulated via the train so that we don't miss the deliveries. Otherwise, the engineering practices remains the same.
Understood. So what I'm understanding is, like, when there is a big release, when there are big milestones, right? At what point you will say that a milestone has been achieved? So that definition is being kind of discussed during this PI planning. And let's say you're doing small releases, but a small release in itself is not a milestone, right? That is like dependent on multiple releases, and probably not just software releases, but also the related customer or the sales deck preparation and all those things. And when you have done everything, and that's where you can say a milestone has been achieved. And release train, when you say, it is not just about purely engineering, it's also kind of taking into consideration all the other business stakeholders, so that your deliveries are happening, your planning is also happening parallelly, and you are kind of future proof also in the same way.
Absolutely, that's right.
Okay, very interesting. I think so. Pavitra ji, going to the next question. Do you think the complexities involved with release trains get even more exaggerated when different teams work at different velocities with different objectives? And let's say there are some cultural differences also in those teams. How does that impact the release trains?
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a challenge, right?
Okay.
When different teams are operating at different maturity, different culture, it's definitely a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Different velocities is not a problem. That's
Okay.
like a very common thing which happens in a release train.
Mm-hmm.
So velocity is nothing but like an internal measure to the team on how much I've committed, how much I'm going. So that can keep going, on and forth. What the problem is different culture and different objectives. So it's okay, like the teams have their own way of doing things, but where the challenge could be, if the individual teams are not looking at the same big picture, then we have a problem.
Okay. Okay.
So, for instance, in the same example, to continue, the SAP whom we had chosen as a partner, they were the SAP engineering partners for entire organization.
Okay.
So, no problem. You can continue working that way. But the lean team who are supplying to us, who are our partners, should understand what an e-commerce platform is. That is important. So it can be a challenge if the teams are not looking at the same big picture or they have their own agenda in mind. That really becomes a big problem. And how we overcome is something very simple, where in every PI planning, the very first presentation or the very first person who talks is either a business owner or a product manager, where he or she keeps repeating the why. This is why we are here. This is our end purpose. This is
Okay.
our bigger goal.
Okay.
So even if you're hearing it for the nth time, if there is that one person who's misaligned or new, they automatically understand the bigger picture, and we try and see if a natural alignment is possible.
That's very interesting. So what you're saying is, if the different teams had different velocities, that is not a problem because that is probably expected. All teams never have the same velocity, but it's important that all the teams are aligned with the vision of the company or the next deliverable, the milestone that we are planning, what exactly we are trying to achieve, so that they can kind of set themselves up to the pace, and also they understand like in what way they are supposed to contribute, and there is no confusion there. And you're saying that in every PI meeting, all the developers will also be present probably. The whole teams will be
Yes.
present, and in that meeting, so it's a very important meeting, I understand, because you are kind of taking time off probably all the developers and different stakeholders, and you want to be very sure that you kind of articulate and repeat multiple times the objectives, so that everybody understands it clearly and there is no space for confusion there. Okay, that's very
Absolutely.
interesting. What role do you think the inter-team relationships play in the success of release trains? Let's say two teams are not talking to each other for whatever reasons, and or they are not talking enough. Let's say the chemistry equation is, let's say, off. So how does that impact the overall deliveries and release trains?
Honestly, I think it will be a deal breaker. So, if, like in any organization or any project, the people, the trust, and the collaboration is the fuel to the train. If the train has to move forward, we need people talking to each other. We need the guards down. We don't want a testing wall. We don't want a developer wall. And we don't want the leadership to not, go it along with each other. All that can be a deal breaker. The human angle is what can make or break the train. I'll just share you my personal example in the same e-commerce example what to share with. Initially, when we got the SAP team, they were in totally different organization, reporting to totally business unit, and we were more in the digital space. Even though we got them to our train in a virtual way, they participated to a PI planning. There was some Cold War
Okay.
initially because they were in an entirely different, like say, a culture. We were in an entirely new space trying to explore. The guards went down when, after one PI, I spoke to the leader as an RT, the program manager of SAP. And the first time I spoke to him in my mother tongue, which was common as his. And that's when the guards went down. And slowly we both together decided to have a brainstorming among the leadership where the SAP leadership understood how important e-commerce delivery is.
Okay.
And the e-commerce leadership understood, okay, SAP is beyond us. They have so many other things to do.
Right.
So the leadership came together, people came together, and more than any ceremony, we could just pick our phones and talk to them. So when the guards went down and people started talking, I think the magic happened.
Okay.
So we are relying completely on the collaboration. Otherwise, they are just trains standing on the metal tracks.
Interesting. So what you're saying is communication is very important here. In the beginning, there are some, let's say, anxieties or whatever, or people are not comfortable talking to each other, or when they come from different cultures, they are probably very conscious about it. But there is no other way but to deal with it, is what I understand. You have to start the conversation, and probably it's a good idea to kind of start the conversation directly from the top. The main leaders or the managers in the team tell them that, hey, this is what is happening, and kind of make them comfortable, and you also be comfortable in that process. And when the leaders will be comfortable, the teams will automatically start communicating with each other more and more. That's when the guards will go down and actual releases will happen, actual values will come. So probably there will be some kind of slope here. Some time it will take for people to kind of get involved, and the people who are planning their releases probably should plan about this also.
The conversation starter is the why.
Okay.
Only that can bind all of us, right?
Okay,
Because by nature, humans have different culture, different tool, different practices.
Right.
But how or who can unite is only that magnet, that purpose. Because
Okay.
when that purpose is understood by both of them, then we naturally become one team in mind.
Right.
So the conversation starter is the why.
Okay, that's a very interesting theme. You said that eventually we become one team, though there are multiple teams. Since there's only one objective in the end, we have to see ourselves as just one big team, which is divided for different functional purposes. Okay,
Right.
very interesting. So, Pavithra, coming to the next question, what are some of the cautions that everybody should take to avoid being derailed when using release trains?
Yeah. What I can immediately think of is the first time when we started in a safe, right? There was so much of energy that we are embracing a new framework,
Right.
new metrics, new tools, new dashboards, lot of things to do. But one thing which we had missed, and I would recommend people who are embracing it for the first time, is do not forget your engineering practices, because SAFE is just a framework. A train is just a virtual organization. So, in the energy of tracking the new metrics, new practice, and new teams, our core engineering practices like clean code, code reviews, like say design principles, doing a quick POC and validating with the customers, these basics engineering, what is the bread and butter, should not be forgotten, because then whatever we do, it will not work. And second is when we define these metrics, right, and we are starting to measure ourselves, we should not just measure like output, we should measure outcome. For example, we have a tendency to only say productivity is tick mark, efficiency is tick mark, but we miss out on the key metrics of, is the customer happy?
Okay.
What is the customer retention rate?
Right.
Finally, whatever you built, did somebody actually use it? Right? So
Okay.
those kind of, let's say, measuring the outcome should not be missed. And third and last, I think most important one is keep your customer close. Whatever platform, whatever you're building, have the voice of the customers, like your business owners, sales, marketing, or a customer themselves as a representative. In whatever way suits your project, have them close to your train. They are the ones who will keep you rooted that whatever you're doing is finally what is the end result, what you form the train for. So
And that's very interesting. So what you're saying is this whole concept of release train and even Scaled Agile Framework for that matter is not imposing any new, practices or new ways of doing things. It's like whatever you are, engineering best practices or best practices for any domain or any, let's say, sales or marketing, that doesn't change here. You are supposed to keep doing it. This framework is like a wrapper or let's say an integration on top of it to bring everybody together so that the common objective is achieved. And this should not become an excuse like, since we are using release trains, we don't have to follow agile principles or we don't have to follow design principles or whatever. Everything remains intact. Only the way you deliver and the way you kind of communicate with each other kind of gets not changed, but more aligned and more kind of better planned, basically.
absolutely, it doesn't nullify any of your concepts, and it's not an excuse for poor documentation. You continue to follow those practices, but it's only helping you to collaborate and orchestrate your scaled complexity better. That's it.
A very interesting point to also mention that we should measure outcome and not just output, right? Because we can get lost into our own metrics. It's a very good point that you brought, because what happens is oftentimes there is this obsession with measurement. Okay, what happens? We start measuring velocity, burnout, and all those burn down charts and all those things, and nobody, particularly in engineering, and I am also from engineering. So what happens is, since we are not dealing with customers directly and all those things, the measurement around those areas gets missed in a way. We take pride in the fact that we have delivered what we committed as in the beginning of the sprint, and all those deliverables which we planned, we have actually came out, testing has happened. But whether they have actually made an impact to the customer, whether they are happy with the feature, those things are not part of this measurement. So in a way, it's like we are stuck in the process in a way. I mean, we are giving too much importance to our own processes, which is also important, which has its own significance, but we completely kind of detach from the next phase of the delivery, which is customer facing. And what you're mentioning is very important, because it's eventually we're building everything for the customers to use. We're not building something for the sake of building, right? So customers should also be kept in mind, their behavior, their reaction, their kind of interest, and that would kind of keep us all grounded. And of course, as I mentioned, all the teams, not just one team, all the teams have to keep that main goal in the mind, that you are eventually building something for the customers. Very interesting. Okay.
Actually, I learned it hard way. I still remember in our first PI, I mean, 5 years back,
Okay.
we built something and there was some delay or something. And we engineers, as always, we were very proud of what we built. And
Right.
we went and showed the demo saying this is exactly as per spec.
Mm-hmm.
There are no defects open. We have taken care of clean code. The UX is looking so brilliant. The business owner kept quiet for 5 minutes throughout the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, he told a line.
Mm.
He said, "Operation successful, patient dead. The customer is gone. Do you know this?" So that
Okay.
hit me very hard. So we learned this lesson a little hard, saying, okay,
Okay.
the hero of the story
I think
is,
he has put it very, very succinctly and very clearly. Operation successful, but the patient is dead. So what's the point of all this operation? Okay. Okay.
exactly.
Okay. I will remember this line forever.
So,
I think.
yeah, that's hit me hard and I always remember it. So,
Okay. I think at this point, I would also like to ask all the viewers, like, if you guys have used release trains and scaled agile framework, what has been your learnings and what keeps you grounded? And also the intra-team communication. I am particularly very interested in that, because I have seen that in different organizations, it's not uncommon for teams to not talk to each other much. And in different organizations, it's different, but often, this situation becomes where teams are not talking enough, and there is this old saying, like, the way teams communicate to each other, the same way your engineering product will also look like. Right? So it would look pieces which have been just put together without any communication. Your final output also, if the teams are not talking to each other. So although it is nothing to do with release train itself, because this is something which all the teams should kind of take note of and do it themselves, but I would still be interested. So all the viewers, do let me know how you guys are implementing this release trains or scaled agile framework. What are the challenges? What are your learnings? It would be great to know and share with each other. And Pavithra, any last words, and then we can wrap up this discussion.
yeah, I mean, it's been great conversing, and it was nice to recollect some of the initial challenges what I faced, and having a very authentic discussion. Last words is, I think, yeah, have your whatever framework you take up, safe, scrum, or traditional waterfall.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally okay.
Mm-hmm.
Have your customer embedded with you. Keep the why always alive. Keep reminding ourselves, why are we here? Why are we a team? And I think that will naturally align people, and then, help us to steadfast towards the direction what we want to achieve.
Thanks, Pavitra. I think I will keep the why with me, and all the viewers should also keep it. So this is the only thing that we have to kind of get out of this conversation, actually, because this will be applicable everywhere in your life. Thanks for this discussion. I have myself learned a lot. I hope all the viewers would also find it useful. All the viewers, if you like these kind of conversations, please consider subscribing. We have some very amazing line of conversations lined up. I hope you guys are finding this useful. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.